what's happening, people? These intros are pretty amateur and unprofessional, but do you know what? I'm a pretty amateur and unprofessional guy at times, so it makes sense. And also, it's helping me get people to rate, like, subscribe, and review the podcast on Apple, which is what's helping this podcast grow. Even though the TikTok clips are doing pretty well, we need regular listeners. And when people see that this has got 100 5-star reviews on Spotify, they'll listen because they'll think I'm not amateur or unprofessional. Emma Storey Gordon is my podcast guest today. So this is pretty fat loss heavy, this podcast. We go in detail about weight loss, coaching weight loss. About 33 minutes in is where we really go in depth. So if you're trying to lose weight yourself or coach people how to lose weight, that'll probably be where you get the best information. So before you go, sign up to the program that I'm launching on the Saturday before Christmas. It's what's going to help fund this podcast. It's what's going to help stop my bank account from draining. So sign up in the description or the show notes below and enjoy the podcast. I've been stalking your Instagram for the last while, by the way, and no one has as much posts as you.
Thanks.
5,500. So I usually get down to the bottom. What I usually do is get to the bottom, then like their first post to make them nervous. But I was like, I can't get back 5,000.
Okay.
And do you know what I've picked up from your post that I wanted to ask you the most? So seeing our jobs, see the first year that I'd done it, I kind of lost myself a bit. Just I wasn't having a laugh at all. And you started to say that you're just having a laugh more. I watched the video, you just laughing for 20 seconds.
Yeah.
How are you going about day to day, actually making sure that you have fun when you do this job?
Oh, good question. I think more generally in life, I just think if you're laughing, I think you're having a good time. If I can look back on my life and be like, I've laughed a lot, I've had a good time. And you can take yourself too seriously for sure. And you can I guess forget that the reason that you started and actually this is the coolest job ever. I get to do what I love every single day.
Yeah.
Doesn't always need to be serious. I think some people ruin what they do by calling it work and the negative connotations that most people have of work. Where actually my work's really fun. And a lot of people do my work as a hobby, right? But actually now I get to pay myself to do that.
Yeah, I think one of the things I'm most grateful for before I started this job was I done a call center job, and it was 5 months of sheer hell. The only reason I stayed in it was because COVID hit, and I would have went back to hospitality, but I just had to spend 5 months speaking to angry Australians, and that's my last job. Whereas the one before that was bartending, and I actually I loved it. I loved it. But I was speaking, so I've got a mate that does this as well, and we both worked together in Melbourne, and after the first year is doing this, because we both became PTs, and it was a year and a half in, we'd done quite well, got our businesses off the ground, and we just were on the phone, we're we just don't have a laugh anymore. And now when we go do stuff, we don't work together. We just we do the same job, but we just switch everyone off, and we just go away and do something. Because it's nice to have someone as well that understands the stresses of the job and stuff as well.
I think I noticed during lockdown I had back surgery. And after back surgery, I went to therapy, and I probably should have gone for numerous other reasons previously, right? But I wasn't ready to go. But after back surgery, I had phantom pain. And anyway, I went to therapy.
What does phantom pain, what do you mean by that?
So technically there was no problem with my back anymore, but I was still getting pain because I expected to get pain in certain movements and the anticipation of pain. So yeah, basically I kind of had to work through different movements, and that's why I initially went to therapy. But then I also went to therapy just for myself, right? And I think after that, I ended up laughing loads. And right. I think it was from truly being present. And I think it was something that without really noticing, I'd not been present for quite a long time. Whether it's just now sitting here thinking, I've just got an email about something I need to do after this.
Yeah.
And thinking about that instead of where I am right now. And I don't think you can truly laugh, hilariously laugh, unless you're present and in the moment. Stuff isn't really funny if you're thinking about that you made a fool of yourself 10 minutes ago, or worrying about something that's past, or worrying about what you've got to do after this. And I think that's kind of the key to happiness or being present or enjoying yourself, is not worrying about what's coming next and not overthinking what's just been.
Were you doing that before then? You think you were being far too serious before with work?
I wouldn't necessarily say mega serious, but I definitely wasn't like present in the moment with people in the same way that I make a conscious effort to be now. And I think generally that's hard for people now, given you always have your phone, you've always got notifications, there's always something else to do. If you run your own business, you literally never finish work. Like there's never a point where I'm like, there's literally nothing to do. I'm like, I have to draw a line now and I'll start again tomorrow.
I have to like make plans with and make sure that like I'm not on my phone.
Yeah.
I'll have to like see if I'm in the house, but I can't like not work if I'm by myself. I just have like I can't just sit and watch a Netflix thing.
Yeah, and I'm exactly the same. And I know you said that you're single.
Yeah.
I feel like it's
that
probably
just a dig?
yeah, and
You look single.
yeah, I know that you said. Yeah, I think it's. I was thinking about this the other day, and I was asked this on another podcast. Like, do you think you could have got to where you are within the last couple of years if you also had a partner? And I don't know if I could have. I think I worked very hard because, like you say, you're sat at home at night. Most people would like switch off and enjoy time with their partner or something. I'm like, well, what's the point? There's no one else here. I'll just keep working or I'll do the next thing. So I think it can be used as an advantage to an extent.
Well, I was with my ex for 1 month into doing this. That's probably why. Because I went fully for it because I had that call center. So I knew her from the call center job, and she was like on about getting just like regular jobs or whatever and moving abroad again. I was like, I can't. I actually can't go back to like just a mundane job that I hate. And then, so I don't think I would do it. For the first year and a half, definitely not. I think I've had time now because I'm actually, if I work too much now, I actually do like burn out. So I am a lot better at like keeping like tabs on when I'm working too much. But I think at the start, you have to. You just get no clients. You'll get nowhere if you don't fully go for it.
Yeah. Yeah. There is that line, isn't there, between like working hard and burning out. And I do think it's funny when you see people who have maybe got like, I don't even like the 4-hour work week. Yeah, that's fine if you have a business that's running already. Like
if you spent 10 years working 70-hour weeks, you can have a 4-hour work week.
And you see all these business mentors essentially saying that without saying it, like, oh yeah, I've got all these systems in place, so actually I only have to show up for 2 hours a day. Cool. But also in the same sentence, you're like, yeah, I grafted on the gym floor for 60 hours a week. Like, right. So how do you think you got here? Like, you have to do the work to get to there. And sure, like I could definitely make at least one of my business works off like 2 hours a week. But I don't want to do that. Like, I think a lot of people get to that point and then outsource and they're like, I'll take more time back. But I genuinely love what I do. So I just fill it with other shit.
The last boy I had on, he used to be like my previous coach. And he's basically just, I've never seen anyone that can work like him. But it's actually ridiculous. Like, so say he used to have like, at one point he had 120 one-on-one online clients, like one-on-one, like doing check-ins. His name's Tony McAlevey. He's from...
You're going to say Tony Macaroni. But yeah.
Just runs the fucking stallion down the road. No, so he had 120 clients and I was one of them when he probably had 80 with me. He does his like check-ins, like just puts on his phone, does one and then goes on to the next one and he does like 60 straight. And I'm like, how? And
but what do you think the quality of that is at some point?
But he gave me check-ins. They were actually good. That's what I mean. I've never seen anyone, like he's actually taken into consideration what you've been saying and stuff like that. Like one time I went out 3 times in a row, like when I first moved to London, and he just grilled me. Just absolutely. And I was hungover as well, and I played it through the speakers, and my flatmate was there, and my flatmate was also Glaswegian. He was like, Jesus Christ, mate, you need to sort your life out. I was sitting there, put 1 3 kilos. Just going through me.
I mean, yeah, if you can do that. I think the reason that I can work so much is because I do different things.
Yeah.
I couldn't do, like I think I got to like doing sort of 60 check-ins, and then I was like, I'm not enjoying this anymore. And then when you cut back down, you're like, oh, I absolutely love this.
Yeah.
And it's the same with anything. I think if you do too much of it, you're like, oh, this kind of starting to feel like work. Like,
do you hate doing check-ins?
No, I absolutely love it. But now I only have 20 one-to-ones.
Right.
And the rest of my coaches do. So I kind of know like where my limit is on that. And I love those check-ins.
Are you one-to-one clients, like people have been on with you for ages?
Most of them, yeah.
Yeah. And you just don't want to get rid of them at all?
I think it's still important to have, like, I want to keep my foot in it. Like, I want to be on the button. So I want to have one-to-one clients. I want to be still in their coaching. Like, I don't want, I think a lot of people like just move into business mentoring. I think it's quite important, given how quickly online coaching moves, that you know what you're doing and that you're in it. And I guess that's what makes me unique from other coaches or other mentors, is that not only am I mentoring it, but I'm also living it and teaching it as well. Yeah.
Why do you think everyone goes into like business mentoring?
Money.
Just money.
Well, I mean, it's probably not just money. It's really, I found it's really rewarding, right? And if you think one of my main business values is impact, how can I impact more people, help other coaches, help more people, right? So that's kind of like my driver for it. And because I see so many, I guess, like things that I don't want to see in the industry, and there were no women. And I was like, I'm bored of just being like, there's no women mentors. Well, fucking do it then. Like, you can't just complain about this shit. You have to take the action to do it. So there was numerous reasons I wanted to do it. I think a lot of, like, you can make more money business mentoring, probably easier than taking on more and more and more clients.
Well, I suppose like PTs are willing to, like, they already charge people. They already see the value in like charging people, don't they? I do think people rush into it far too quickly. And then it's...
What, becoming a mentor or getting a mentor?
Yeah, becoming a mentor. Like, I think a lot of people rush in it. Like, there's people that have been doing it for like a year, 2 years. Like, I shouldn't... People come to me for like business advice just because I'm a PT. They know that's got clients. Like, don't ask. I'll tell you stuff, but... And they're like, can I give you money? I'm like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
I've probably just told you a load of shit.
Although saying that, I think your advice might be better than some of the business mentors I know who haven't been... This is my point. Like, they haven't been in the industry for 5 years. They haven't coached a client for 5 years. So what they're saying is 5 years old. And if you think of even just after COVID, how quickly online has built, like a lot of these people have never run successful online businesses.
Yeah.
So actually, I always think the best mentor is someone like 2 steps ahead of you. Not, I wouldn't even say steps ahead, but like 5 years ago, what might have worked kind of thing.
I even think the social media advice is all very outdated. It's still like the DM me sort of thing and like a picture or whatever. And it's like, you just need to move away from that because Instagram doesn't even like promote that anymore. You need to like really move away from all that stuff.
And everyone, like, that worked initially when people were like, oh, a DM. And now people are like, oh, a DM. Like, it's obviously a bot, or it's obviously a copy and paste job. So obviously it doesn't work. Like, if you find it annoying as a personal trainer when business mentors slide into your DMs, then your clients will find it annoying when you slide into their DMs. Like, it's just common sense. Like, put yourself in the client's shoes. How would you like to be approached? And it's probably not that.
I had an American guy that slid into my DMs and he sent me this video. He obviously sends it to everyone, but he's just sitting with a cap on. He's like, yo, brother, I want to invite you to the Wake Up Wealthy Brotherhood. Wow. And he was like, it was so good. And he's like a proper American accent. He was like, I just think you're going to be a right fit dude and all this. And I was like, you clearly haven't watched anything I've ever put out. And I sent him a video back saying like that. Do you know what, mate? Like, I woke up skint this morning. And I've seen this message off of you. Like, it's just as if the stars are aligned, mate. And I sent him, it was like 40 seconds of me like putting on an American accent. And he sent me like a link to sign up. Oh, didn't even watch it. But there's so much of that in our industry, especially. But I don't even know that I wasn't into do PT. And I think I just see my thing says entrepreneur. And it only says that because it's the only way I can attach music on my stories. Like when I put it as personal coach, it would only give me like the original like Apple songs, and I wanted to play like, I don't know, Bass Hunter or something.
So now you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah, so it makes me look like an absolute knob. Yeah, horrendous. So what is your advice for PTs then? Like, for business, like getting clients, like how is yours separate? I'm
not against going in someone's DMs, but I think you should be invited in. So I'm very much like on the bottom of like every post I do that's kind of relevant. It would be like, if you're struggling with this, DM me. And then like a certain word. And I know that can seem cringy, right? So it might be like, DM me fat loss and I'll help you. And when I first saw stuff like that, I was like, why? Why not just like message me? But understanding a little bit of human psychology, like people find it awkward to start a conversation. If you've just started the conversation for me, or DM me this emoji, you get so much more from that because of that small barrier. So when you're thinking about how to get into conversations with people, you've got to think, how can I break down the barrier to getting into this conversation so it's as easy and frictionless as possible for this person? And that could be, you know, it's basically some way of inviting you in. So it might be like a poll that's like, do you struggle with fat loss too? If you click yes, I'll shoot you a message and see if I can help. Cool. It's simple. They've invited you in, but they literally have to click a button and then you go and do the work and message them. That feels very different than, hey, you look like, I mean, even that's like, you might need some fat loss advice. I don't know, like even that's
here's a free meal plan.
Yeah. Oh, and if they haven't said that's what I'm interested in, then
you're intruding in their space as well, aren't it? And I always like picture it as like, it feels the same as someone knocking on your door and trying to sell you something. Like if they're coming in your DMs, it's no different. And like how I just see my dad's reaction when someone comes to the door. He's like, get to fuck, I'm having my dinner.
Yeah.
It's the exact same if you're like in your DMs. And you seem to have like the approach, it's just like fire out as much like free information that's trying to help people and then build the trust that way, which is pretty similar to what I would be like as well.
Yeah, and you'll find that sales are easy because people already bought into you. Like every single call I get, so I don't do calls for the kind of group coaching side of stuff, but if like a coach is signing up with me for mentoring, I'll jump on a call with them first just to make sure we're a good fit. They're already sold. And that's not even to be cocky. It's because I've put out probably, if you wanted to listen to over 1,000 hours of me online, it's there, right?
I've done about 4.
Yeah, most people who are like going to sign up, they've already listened to me. They know what I'm doing. They've probably done EIQ. They've probably done coaching with me before. Like there's no, like, I don't need to sell it because I've put so much free stuff out there and they've already got value. And I think people are probably too scared to put out that much value. I'm like, give as much free stuff as you want. Like you can't give enough free stuff.
I think I was the best people I listened to when I first started, and I tell everyone, because a lot of coaches listen to this as well, is Jordan Syatt and Mike Mckinney. They've got a podcast called How to Be a Personal Trainer, and that's literally just like their mantra is just like help as many people, even people that DM you, just keep helping them. They know you're a coach, and they were like, the advantage you have over people with following is you can get back to everyone and you can help people for free. Because I think a lot of people don't realize a lot of people with loads of followers are like skint.
Oh, yeah.
Like absolutely skint.
And I've worked with some of them and I'm like, wow, there's no business behind this.
Yeah.
But that's the difference between an influencer and a coach.
Yeah.
And you're right. Like there are advantages to having a smaller following, both from like you can get back to more people. But even like if someone comes on to, if you go on someone's page and they've got 200,000 followers, you might be like, I'm not going to bother messaging this person because I'm probably not going to get a reply.
Yeah.
If they've got 2,000 and they've put something out decent and they've invited you into their DMs and they're like, I'm happy to help you, you're much more likely to message that person. So there is advantages to having a smaller following. And I think there is a limiting belief of people that you need to have 500,000 followers or something to build a big business. That's not true.
Yeah, definitely. I was reading you do like blog posts, so it was like 29 for 29 or something, and then 31 for
30, 31. Yeah.
Is that what it was? Like 31 from 31?
Yeah.
I read the old one. You were like, I'm not 29. And you spoke a lot about being single and like being happily single. Are you not single anymore?
No, yeah, I am.
You are?
Yeah.
What are the confusing
last week?
What are the confusing videos? No, there was one like 10 weeks ago.
Oh, Amelia.
I was sitting there, I was like, am
yeah.
what's going on?
I think
and even the comments were saying the same, so I was like, are they? I'm so confused.
Yeah, but that's Amelia's fault. She's the biggest like cock block, whatever the female version of that is. She's my business partner and we travel a lot together, but we are both single.
Right, okay. So you just try to confuse people.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it started as a joke and now I'm like, great, never gonna get any action.
Me and Michael have the opposite effect. We are trying not to come across as gay and we just do all the time. Every video we make. The last one we done like a fat loss myths one. Did you see that one, Paul? The fat loss. And like when we start, our humor does come across quite camp. Like some of the stuff we do is quite camp. So he's like done a little dance and stuff like that. And then so the last clip was going to be like, you can still eat healthy even though like food costs are going up. And he got a picture of Richie Sunak, put it on his like Apple Mac, and then took his trousers down and he had like a little hanky next to him made it look like he was like wanking over Richie Sunak.
How is that relevant to healthy eating?
No, it isn't at all.
Oh, right.
And I was sitting filming him, and I was going, this is why people think we're fucked. And then for about 20 minutes, he was trying to get the scene right, and he just looked up and he's like, "Why are you letting me do this?" I was like, "We need to like never make videos ever again." And like one of the scenes is him in the bath and stuff like that, and people were just constantly like, "You two are clearly together." And I was like, let's just stick to our own businesses. Let's stop doing that.
Stuff like that. So maybe a similar vibe with Amelia.
Yeah. How are you finding the single life then? How long have you been single for?
I feel like it's since anything properly serious, like 4 or 5 years, which has actually been kind of what we were talking about before, when business has really taken off.
Yeah.
Basically heartbroken, and then I just put everything into business.
Was this in Dundee?
Yeah.
Do you think that gave you like the kick to go straight into business?
I mean, I was already doing what I was doing, but I definitely think I'm very much a person of like, if one door closes, I'm like, I'm going to absolutely make the most of this. So even little things like Amelia's going to Texas next week, but I'm not going because I've got other stuff I need to do back here. But I'm like, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to make the most of being here with stuff that I can't do over there. So I always kind of think like that, but especially with that situation, I was like, I'm just going to put all this heartbreak energy into.
Did any of that come up in therapy?
A little bit, and actually more to do with my back, because the same thing. I did the same
heartbroken.
thing.
Your back's broken.
No, like when my back broke, or when I had the back problem, I was like, oh great, I'll just start another business with this extra time that I can't train or sleep. So yeah, that tends to be my coping mechanism.
What was like the biggest thing you get out of therapy? I'm looking to do it. Like I've been putting it off for like a year. It's just one of those things you do. I think I've got that bad thing where you think you need to go for therapy if you're fucked. Whereas like I feel like I'm in a good place just now, but I've had times when I've not been in a good place where I should probably go for it now. Yeah,
I agree with that. I think sometimes it's hardest to ask for help when you need it most. And so some people don't. So actually going like prevention's better than a cure, right? You wouldn't be like, wait until you get obese to start dieting. You'd be like, let's avoid that problem.
Yeah.
Same with your mental health, I think. Probably the biggest thing I got was like the being present thing. And then also the ability to respond and not react to things. Like just sitting for a second and being like, how do I actually want to show up here? Like, how do I want to respond to this? Versus like just running through life reacting to shit.
So would you respond quite negatively to getting like negative feedback and stuff before?
No, I mean, I've never been like massively hot-headed, right? So I wouldn't say I was like an angry person in the slightest. But now like I'll actually, even if we're just talking about like an argument, like I won't just say what's on the top of my head. I'll be like, how do I want this to go? Like, how do I want this person to feel? Like, what's the actual outcome I want here? And is it worth the argument in this situation? Or is like, what am I going to get and what are they going to get from me saying X? Like, I would think through things a little bit more.
Did they give you like strategies for that? Or how did they pinpoint you were like that was a problem that you were having?
I don't know. I don't think it was a problem, but there are strategies for that. Like surf the urge would be one of them, which I'm sure you've probably used with clients around like feeling maybe the urge to overeat and sitting with it and choosing how to respond to it instead of just reacting to like, oh, I'm hungry, I'll just grab this. Like
what I try, the biggest thing that I'm harping on about with my clients just now is writing down stuff. So it's mostly negative feelings they have. So like I've a few clients that even if they do lose weight or whatever, they still will speak to themselves like as if they would speak to themselves when they were obese. So that's something that I'm kind of harping on about because I think journaling's huge and very underrated, especially with it. Because you don't, see, unless you go on with a coach, you don't learn any of this. And you don't learn it on the floor or anything. On the floor is great for like the getting to learn how to speak to clients, but you don't learn how to help them with their head. Like you really don't. And there's nothing really out there. Well, I'm sure your business, like I'll big that up now.
EIQ nutrition.
I'm sure your business mentoring does. And Katie spoke so highly of like the events you do and stuff like that. Yeah. Like what? Because I was trying to ask Katie because she comes at stuff way differently because it's like online coaching as well. What strategies do you use for clients in terms of like more the mindset? Like, because she gives them homework and stuff. Yeah. And honestly, that was the first I'd heard of someone like giving people homework. I'm kind of like just big on like voice messaging people and I don't have like specific, here, you all need to do this. I might just have like individual things that I've learned off, like, because Paul's a therapist as well.
Yeah.
So individual things that I've learned off other people that I'll get clients to do. So do you have like any?
Well, I wrote a journal, so I send that to all clients.
The VJ.
The VJ. Yeah. And I think that's really useful. I think you're right. Like writing things down, check-ins are really, really useful. Getting people to talk through things. I think some people need to know that there's someone on the other side reading it to then like really write things down and then work through things. But even like you learn from your own mistakes. I think it's accepting that mistakes will happen, but you learn from them. And when it comes to things like emotional eating, overeating, not to set yourself barriers of like, I never want to overeat again. Like, actually, can we look at the frequency of how often this is happening? Can we come up with better coping strategies for you in those situations? And knowing when to refer out as well. Like a lot of this stuff is mindset stuff, but a lot of it is like, oh, okay, maybe we've uncovered that you would benefit from therapy as well. And those are two distinct things. It doesn't mean you have to stop coaching to go to therapy. It could mean that you're going to benefit from both. But I do think your point about the gym floor being different than online, I think people compare them and like, oh, you should do gym floor before online or blah, blah. They're completely different jobs. Yeah. Like they're not the same in the slightest. I don't even think the service is anywhere near the same. Some excellent in-person coaches also have an online stream to their business. But like when I worked face to face, I would never have like been doing that kind of in-depth work.
You don't have the time.
No, of course not. Like not if you're also, I'm looking at your form while we're also talking about emotionally eating and how you could regulate yourself. Like, no, it's not the right setting for it either. So yeah, I just think when people compare those two things, I'm like, it's apples and oranges. Like they're two different things. Yeah,
there's a lot of things that you can see in-person trainers try to implement the online stuff, and I've been the same. I've treated in-person differently. Like, even like I find it weird seeing PTs like measure their clients in the gym. I'm just like, I just find that really strange. I find it quite intrusive as well. I'd rather get them to do it and then tell me what it is. Obviously, they can like lie about it and stuff, but I just think that's quite intrusive, and I think you should just leave that to like online. For me, definitely. But I have found, even though they're two separate jobs, I've found working in person has helped me a lot with online as well. Did you do a good bit of in person?
Yeah, like five or so years.
5 years. Where did you work?
Virgin Active, then the Edinburgh Uni Gym, then down at 639 briefly in London, and then up in a gym in Dundee for a bit as well.
So you've moved about a lot.
Yeah, I guess just where I was based.
Yeah. What I know I asked you before, but what has made you like settle in Dundee?
Oh, I'm not settled.
No?
Come on.
Not settled at all?
No, maybe...
everyone describes me as erratic, like I'm the least settled person ever.
I like having it as a base, but I don't tend to spend that long there. But I bought a flat there, and it's a nice base, and it's pretty cheap to live, and my family are quite close to there. So like it's kind of my base to go wherever I want to go.
Where's next for you?
Probably Texas. Yeah. But I'd quite like to go somewhere a little bit hotter. But I also want to stay.
Is that a month you done there?
We just did just over 2 weeks.
How was it?
Just kind of to test it out. It's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
it.
Like
what is it that's making it cool? That's making everyone go there? Because everybody's going there.
I know it is. I think partly it's that, right? Is that there's cool people there. So like I'm quite like people over places. But it's a different culture. Like we went to a football game. And I was like, this is mad.
American football?
Yeah.
Yeah, right, okay.
Like, they're just so into it. And we obviously didn't really understand what was going on either. So there was some American guys next to us explaining it. And then halfway through, there was like, they all stopped and there was like this big announcement. And I think I'd missed the start of it because we were chatting. And then I was like, well, who are they talking about? And they were like, oh, then, I don't know, it was like some army sergeant had like come and saved what was the name of it? Oh, this is gonna ruin the story if I can't. Maybe it was like, let's say it was Brenda, right? It
Big Brenda.
Saved Brenda from like who was living under the stadium, and I was like, who is this Brenda lady that's living under the stadium? Like, what? It was Bertha. Her name was Bertha, right? I was like, who's Bertha that's living under the stadium? I was like, what? How? Like, is this like some kind of like old ritual thing. It was so weird. And I was like, I wonder how long ago this was. And it was like all black and white showing us videos of stuff. Then they bring out Bertha. It's a drum. Like it's like mass. It was like Bertha's 100th birthday, and they'd come up with this like amazing celebration about a drum. And I was like, this is why I love Texas, because and everyone was like, whoa, Bertha, like absolutely loving it. I was like, this is the drum that they use in the band, and it was just like the biggest deal. And I was like, just thinking, wow, you can get so excited about a drum.
Yeah, I do like it. But see as well, whether can you just move there? Well, America do visas, because I would love to go to Austin, but it's just the visas.
I don't know. I spoke to Chris about this.
Williamson.
Yeah. And he was like, oh yeah, it was mega easy, but he still pays all his tax and stuff in the UK.
Does he? Right.
So it depends how much you want, like, yeah, why you're moving. How
is he just doing visas though, and then maybe coming home and then going back out?
He doesn't come home that much, and he does have like a visa that he can stay there. He did tell me the name of that visa, and it was something like weirdly, it was like a superhuman visa or something, like I don't know, a superior visa or something.
I had a really, really awkward interaction with him at IFS.
Why?
I was about 12 pints down, and I tried to. So me and my mate,
you're my idol.
No, complete opposite actually. I was like, no, but I watch all his podcasts, and I'm good friends with Yusuf, who's friends with him. But I definitely didn't say idol. I was talking about Love Island to him. My friend was on Love Island last year. His name's Brett, and Brett's quite quirky, and he was getting quite a lot of heat for being quite quirky. And I was like, I was telling him this, and I was like, he reminded me of you. He's quite like a bit of a virgin, but I was also 12 pints down. And I didn't mean it. And he just looked at me and said, did you just call me a virgin? And I was like, sorry. It was like, my mate found it funny just because I clearly never meant it, but I was like, I'm so sorry, mate, you want a pint?
That's so bad.
He didn't, he knew I wasn't actually like calling him a virgin. It was just the way it came out, and he laughed it off, but it's funny. I really like him, but you can tell he's been podcasting so much as well, because he talks to you like podcasting.
Yeah, like, whenever we go for like dinners and stuff, like it's like you're on a podcast, but they tend to be really interesting conversations.
Well, it would make you interested. It would make for interesting conversation, because it means that like we can't look at our phones or anything just now. We have to actually just like stare at.
Well, yeah. Also, if you'd been like, do you want to go for a coffee? We wouldn't have spoken about this stuff, right?
Yeah, it wouldn't be like, oh, how was therapy?
Yeah. It would be like proper surface level. So I do quite like that. But Chris is an intense character anyway, like in the best possible way. But like, yeah, you don't have like mundane chat with him.
The last 4 weeks, I've been asked to go on like 4 of those things.
Have you? What ones? I got asked to go on
Big Brother. Is that a thing again? Yeah, that's what I read. I was like, is Big Brother coming back? But I don't know if, say, like one of them was like, hot Scottish guys dating. I was like, thank you.
Hey.
I was like, thank you very much. And then like the other ones were like dating things, and then like maybe like a Glasgow like anything.
Oh, the only way is Glasgow.
Imagine that, something like that. I think that this would be the worst, because it would just become a meme if you were on that.
Yeah.
No one would even take it slightly seriously. But I couldn't think of anything worse than going on one of those things.
So I was asked to go on 2. One of them was called Dinner with Your Ex or something. I was like, absolutely not. Like, why on earth would anyone, like, you couldn't pay me enough to do that, especially not on TV.
That's the nightmare I have every night. I'm already doing it.
And then Come Dine With Me. And then recently, the one where you get married on TV.
Married at First Sight.
I was like, as if you do that.
That's so popular in Australia.
She did say, like, in the message, she was like, it's not legally binding or something.
What do you mean? The marriage isn't?
Yeah.
Oh, so that's all a farce.
Yeah, no, you can't. But imagine, like, because if you actually get married, like, you split everything, don't you?
Would you ever do one of those things? Because I'm not going to lie, I had one thought about maybe doing Big Brother. Because I actually think I'd be all right on it. But it's more, I've said so, like, they could cancel me so easily. They could literally just go on my social media and I'll find something. Like,
yeah, but everyone's like that now. Like, and I mean, politicians act worse than actual, like, I don't know, people that they would never they'd never expect, like, oh, this person who's on Big Brother needs to be like a pinnacle of society and can't have ever done anything wrong.
We're going to get into a section of purely talking about fat loss, and I've been with I agree with lots of what you're saying, but I might disagree with you, so see if you get really angry. I might not be my point of view. I'm just trying to wind you up. So I seen you were talking about how there's maybe been a shift in the way PTs, fitness people, are talking about maybe like good or bad foods, or just like junk food in general, and that it might have went too far the other way. How do you feel about that? What is your points, and is it going to be controversial?
I don't know if it's controversial. I think on the surface, most people would probably agree. I think what I mean by this is we went through a phase of clean eating, right? And it was like everyone should eat clean and junk food is bad, and we were demonizing food, which can be really detrimental to people. And then really what we want people to get to is balance, right? So you're eating still primarily good, healthy, whole food. And then, yes, a little bit of what you fancy. But I think, and I would imagine that the aim of this was to get us from just clean eating to let's include some more of this and a bit of balance. I think we've maybe gone too far the other way, where we're like glorifying, look, I can eat a burger every single day and stay within my calories and lose weight, or I'm going to eat Pop-Tarts, and actually remembering that it's not just what you eat, like it's not just how much you eat, it's what you eat that matters as well. And we've gone a little bit too far on it's just a calorie deficit. It's actually not just a calorie deficit, unless all you care about is fat loss at the expense of how you feel, your health generally. And even it kind of comes back to a calorie deficit of it's much easier to stick to a deficit if you're eating primarily whole foods.
Yeah. I think something that I've been pushing a lot is the term calorie deficit is like, it's done its job, I think, like maybe like in the last 5 or 10 years. And I think now people will say it's a blanket statement when it needs the other information. Like you can't just say calorie deficit, you need to say how can you actually stick to that, like your lifestyle as well, and the actual habits are involved in making you stick to that. Do you think people are too quick to say calorie deficit now about stuff as well?
I think it's a really useful baseline thing to understand. Like you need to be in a deficit, but how you create that deficit, like, and how big that deficit is, and like the method you use to create that deficit, that's where coaching comes into play. But like it's a fundamental of fat loss, energy balance, right? I think for a lot of people, even now, because we're coaches, we probably feel like we've been saying that so much, or that it's said so much in our echo chamber. But I still work with people who are like, oh, I thought I had to cut out all carbs. Like when you realize the fundamental reason why someone is or is losing fat, no matter how they've created that deficit, whether it was, I've always had to cut carbs to lose weight. Well, okay, that's how you were doing it previously. But if we create a deficit in another way, you'll still lose weight, or you'll still lose fat, more to the point. That's really freeing for people. And like food freedom in that respect can be like life-changing for people. But yeah, I think just when people kind of respond to stuff as like, yeah, but it's just a calorie deficit, I think that's very short-sighted. Yeah, that's the fundamental, but there are other things going on as well.
Do you think as a coach, a lot of clients lie about what they consume?
No.
No? Like
I think, no, I wouldn't say not at all. I don't think most of my clients lie to me. And I think that's partly because if you're a good coach, you've created an environment where they feel they can be honest. So if they do overeat, they say. I think tracking calories is ridiculously hard, and we've got research to prove that. Tracking calories accurately is something
What is the research? I've not seen any of that research.
Even when you ask dietitians to try and track calories accurately, they're miles off. When you pay people, so if I was like, I'm going to give you 50 quid to track your calories accurately today, so there's no incentive for you to like not track them. In fact, I've given you an incentive to track them. You still can't do it accurately. So it's not that people are lying. It's that it's very hard to do accurately, and some people forget. So again, I wouldn't say that's a lie.
Yeah.
If they're like, oh, I didn't really think that coffee would have calories in, or that I'd need to like put the ketchup I put on my plate, or I walked past my kids' food and I just ate a bit and I didn't think about that. So a lot of this stuff is like subconscious as opposed to you're lying. And I think that will make people defensive. If you go to a client and you're like, I think you're lying about your calorie intake, they're going to be like, feel like it's you against them, as opposed to, for some reason, we've not created a deficit. How can we figure out why you're not in a deficit? Let's look through what's going on here.
I think finding that balance with clients is quite hard, because whatever you say, even if you're not attacking them, clients will naturally get defensive about stuff. It's the same as like if you get challenged about your opinion about something, you always get defensive about it. So you do, I think that comes with time, doesn't it? Like working your way around how to get clients to tell you the truth. Because I'm not going to lie, see the coach I told you about when I went out 3 times, I used to lie to him. Like I went out the next week and I was like,
yeah, but that's because when you went out, he shouted at you, right? Yeah. And there was that judgment. Whereas
I've named him and everything.
If you can give like a judgment-free zone, then someone will be like, yeah, do you know what? I did overeat this week. Okay, let's figure out why you overate or why you're struggling to stick to this target. Because like as your coach, I'm here to help you get to this goal. If you're not honest with me, then I can't help you get there. And it's not a failure on people's part. Like it's just figuring out why someone isn't able to stick to that deficit. And if it is that they're trying their hardest and they think they're sticking to whatever it is, 1,600 calories, but then not losing weight, is that because you're forgetting to track X, Y, Z?
Where do you find the balance then between, because I've found that I'm helping a lot more people when I'm a bit, not like stricter or blunt, just kind of like, I think when I first came on coaching, I'd be a bit softer and thinking like, oh, maybe it's just like, just support them no matter what they're doing. Whereas sometimes telling them that maybe booking the all-inclusive holiday might not be the best idea, like 3 weeks into like fat loss, do you know what I mean? And I found like just being honest with stuff like that, but always still being approachable. Like, have you had points where you've really had a look at your own coaching and been like, I maybe need to do this differently or this differently?
Yeah, all the time. Like I'm always improving and I've been doing this over 10 years. I don't think anyone's ever done. And I think like your own growth will mean that your coaching changes as well. But I think in that, like that situation, for example, it comes back to people's values. Like actually, if that person wants to lose fat, but also really values going on holiday with their family, then, and it's certainly not a like dichotomy there. Like you can,
it's not black or white.
You can do both at the same time if you choose to. Or you might be like, this week, it's more important for me to be present with my family than worrying if I'm in a deficit or not. So I'm not going to go wildly mental, but I'm also just going to be sensible. I'm going to have a bit of a plan with that. I think being like compassionate and empathetic doesn't mean you're not also tough love. As in, if you don't put in this work, you won't get this result. Like I'm always very clear about that with my clients, but then I'll also be like, but you've said what's most important to you this month is looking after your family because X, Y, and Z has happened. So maybe on your hierarchy of what's important, being in a deficit isn't as high this month, but maybe next month we push on again.
I think with the holidays, what I just noticed that there'll be a lot of coaches that will put up like videos of them on holiday, and it'll be like maybe their most calorific day, and they'll do like a full day of eating, and then like one of my clients will see that and they'll be like, I've got an all-inclusive holiday, and I'm like, yeah, but they're not doing that 350 days of the year.
Yeah.
And you've just started coaching. So don't watch that and expect like, if you go away and do that for 10 days, like I've just seen it so many times when people come back and they are like way heavier. I think you were talking about not weighing yourself and stuff after, but just for people that don't have a coach and they do end up weighing themselves, I think watching personal trainers go on holiday maybe isn't where you should get the advice from.
I agree with that. I also think like own your actions, own your results. Like if you're going to choose, and this is the difference, like an all-inclusive doesn't happen to you. If you're going to choose to go out there and enjoy yourself and put on 5 kilograms of fat, fine, but own that. And then you've got all the time in the world to lose that when you come back. But don't like be a victim to your own life. Like choose to do that, enjoy it, and then choose to lose it if you want to lose it. I think too many people are kind of like, oh, this stuff just happens to me. It doesn't just happen to you. Like you're choosing these things. And then in relation to personal trainers, this is kind of part of the point I was getting at with people going too much on like, look at all the like junk that I'm eating or really highly calorific foods.
It's like, oh, I have a pint. Oh, let's put that in my story. Show them I have a pint.
But then knowing, and I think this is especially true from what I see with women. So it's like the woman that's like, oh, I'm eating 3,000 calories a day. Or look at all this that I'm eating. And then they're like petite, 5'5", shredded. And I'm like, that doesn't add up. Like it's not happening. And because I know some of these people, what is happening is they'll take a photo, eat half of the plate, which is fine, but it's misleading. And like the point is, yeah, sure, they're not saying outright, here's a massive burger, I ate all of it, but it's what people think when they see it on your social media. And working with so many women, like my group coaching is primarily women, it's really misleading for them. And they're like, what am I doing wrong? Do I need to ramp up my metabolism? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, that girl isn't eating that.
Yeah.
Basically, you're not doing anything wrong. Realistically, you can't really lie about energy balance. And unless you're also doing 30,000 steps a day, that isn't how many calories you burn. So either if you continue to eat like that, you would put on weight, or you're doing that very infrequently, or you're not actually eating the food that you're taking a photo of and putting up.
I think that's happening a lot. I think people are definitely, or just ordering something that looks, and then like maybe sharing it with their mate or something like that.
Yeah, which is great, but just give the context. I'm like, in some ways that's even more impressive, because you're like, I'm having a bit of what I fancy, but then I was full halfway through and I knew that I didn't need any more, so I stopped. That's what you need to show, because actually that's balance, and that's what's impressive.
Yeah. I think though, a lot of videos I've made recently are the whole, I think balance is getting taken out of context, and it's actually like they're promoting unbalanced. And I think also with weight loss, although you want to be balanced, you are going to have to go for a period of being like slightly unbalanced, like maybe saying no to like as much night outs as you go on. So I want to make a video. So I was overweight when I was younger. So I was like I was always fat from about like maybe like 7 till about 18. And like when I was like 15, I was getting a lot bigger. And then from about 15 to maybe like 21, I just yo-yoed. So I would get really skinny. Then I would put on like 2 or 3 stone. I never went to the gym or anything. And like maybe for the last like, I'd say 6 years, I haven't like struggled with my weight. I've maybe went up 5 kilos, lost it, that sort of thing. And I wanted to make a video saying, I don't like go out as much. I do say no. Like if my dad gets a Chinese, I do say no most of the time. I wouldn't go on an all-inclusive holiday because it would really stress me out, because I would come back like 6 kilos heavier. And I do make conscious decisions for the sake of like keeping my weight, but I don't like undereat. So I was like, this is what, like, I'm constantly making conscious decisions. Like 2 days ago, I was in Belfast and Michael and his girlfriend got a Chinese. I didn't. I made my own food. And I'm not like obsessed. I just like make decisions that will keep me where I am. I would get stressed or obsessed if I gained loads of weight really quick. I would.
Yeah. I think the point, I guess, that you're getting at there is balance looks different for everyone. And this is the other point, is that restriction is perceived. So for some people, what you're talking about might seem actually quite restrictive. For other people, it wouldn't. And like, I don't massively think about my diet or my exercise or like how many times I go to the gym, because it's so much ingrained in my routine. Now, someone else in my life might find my level of diet, exercise, how much I walk, etc., really quite restrictive. It's not restrictive at all for me. And I think it's very easy on the outside to judge people based on their actions, but really it's the mindset behind that action that matters. So same action with a different mindset or with a different intent, which is the point, will be very different. Like if you said, I'm not having this Chinese because I'm so stressed out about, like, I couldn't even think about putting that in my body. It would like, I couldn't do it. That's probably disordered eating, right? If you're saying, I'm choosing not to have it, it doesn't align with my goals at the moment, it wouldn't stress me out to have it, but I just don't really want it, given I know the consequences of having it would mean I need to eat less tomorrow, right? That's completely different. Same with like, if you like going for a 5K run every morning because it is a great start to your day and you really enjoy it, great. If you're telling yourself, if I don't do this, I can't have breakfast, or like massively restrict, it depends on the intent behind the action. I think restriction is related to that, as in some people will feel restricted dieting a certain way and other people won't. And so much of that is whether you're telling yourself that you're choosing this or it's being forced upon you.
Yeah. Do you think with social media it's promoting disordered eating a lot more? Like, not what I'm not talking about like specific type of video, but just in general, do you think the fitness industry does kind of lean into towards promoting eating disorders?
Or eating disorders?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's too simplistic to say that. And I think people miss that there's so many like genetic components to eating disorders. There's so many control aspects. There's so many reasons that people feel the need to control a certain aspect of their life that actually isn't really to do with what they've seen someone do on social media.
Yeah, they might just correlate them two together.
Yeah.
They go, oh, that gave me an eating disorder when there was already other stuff going on.
I do think that there is more pressure on looking a certain way, and even looking a certain way that the people you're trying to look at like don't even look that way, you know, like cutting your body to look a certain way on Photoshop or like filters and stuff. I can see that as like a young impressionable male or female, that growing up with that would be hard, and that might promote more body image issues, which obviously is related to changing the way that you eat to try and look a certain way, and then potentially eating disorders. So yeah, I think it probably does contribute.
Do you know what's an interesting thing that I've never asked anyone? So I've had like 2 or 3 clients come back to me in the last like year, and a lot of them have like regained weight. And I was trying to think how, like, if there was anything that I could have done, like, to maybe like, because you can't, like, they're not working with you anymore, and like some of them would have like wanted to work on their own. What do you think, there's any way that you can support someone after it, or anything that you can like leave with them that will keep them going? Because I found that like I did beat myself up, but I was also at the same time like, but I haven't spoke to them a year. Not sure.
I think maintenance is underrated generally because it's not sexy, right? People are like, I'll come to you to lose the weight, and then I've lost the weight, so I don't need to personal trainer anymore. Or I've like finished, I've got to my quote unquote goal weight. I think there needs to be more encouragement and more emphasis on losing weight actually isn't that impressive. Most people have lost weight before. Maintaining weight loss, that's impressive. And even all the research, the definition of a successful diet isn't how much I lost in 8 weeks. They come back 6 months later or a year later, and it's how much you've regained from that loss. So we put too much success on this like 6-week transformation versus where are you in 6 months? And I think as personal trainers, we could do a better job at celebrating that. It's harder because people like to do that. Like, I mean, people want quick results, right? And a great way to market is transformation photos. This only took 6 weeks. Give me all your money. But where are they in 6 months? Or do they come back and do that same 6-week transformation because they keep yo-yo dieting?
Like, I think the 6 weeks transformation pictures isn't really any different to slimming world culture or like slimming club culture. Yeah. It's like promoting like fast weight loss.
Sometimes
and stuff like
it's worse.
Yeah, no, it is, because it's then also, well, it's the same thing except you're not standing the scale, you've got the top off, and you're using it to make money off the back of it, really. With like the transformation photos and stuff as well, how would you go about telling personal trainers to promote their business without transformation pictures? Because it is one of those things that every like business mentor or whatever will tell you
to use them. Yeah, I think it depends if it's in line with like your business and who you're trying to help as well. Like if you're saying I really focus on people's relationship with food, and then you're like, here's some transformation photos. Like my whole business is based around working on people's relationship with food, and then you're showing people a transformation photo. That's not really congruent with actually the message that you're putting across, because that shouldn't look a certain way. Like an improved relationship with food might not look like weight loss or weight gain or a certain body size.
An improved relationship with food and exercise is an improved relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
So like you look at food to get a result or like change the way you look. You look at exercise to change the way you look. Whereas if you like had a different perception on yourself as well, I think your food relationship and exercise relationship would improve. And then you could maybe, it's because I think people beat themselves up when they don't get quick results, so they change the way they eat or they change the exercise they're doing. That's what I found when I first lost weight as well. I was a lot less harsh on myself, so it was a lot less desperation to lose weight. I was like, I just want to do this, and then like if I didn't get quick results, I just kept going, and that built up over time. So like I wouldn't, my mindset wouldn't have changed until about 3 months in. I was like, fuck, this is the first time I've ever not stopped.
Yeah, and I think that comes from doing a hard thing. It doesn't necessarily have to be related to weight loss, but I think it often is because it's so ingrained in like who you are. You know, like achieving something external, like I don't know, your degree is still something you've done, but like your body is like you're in it all the time, right? And if you've always struggled with that and then you've achieved it, then it probably will boost your confidence massively and your relationship with yourself.
How would you advise someone that says they've lost weight but they're still really unconfident with how they look?
I don't think
Sorry, that's a difficult question.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I don't think the two are always related or have to be related. Like you're just a smaller version of the self that you were before. And I think a lot of people think that they will feel completely different when they lose weight, and then they realize, shit, I'm exactly the same person, but I'm a smaller version.
Do you think it's the same thing that people do with like money or like
Yeah.
status and stuff as well?
Yeah.
Business.
Like, oh, I thought I'd be happy when I made $1 million, but actually I'm just the same, but I have £1 million. Like, but sometimes it does make you happy, right? But it's more about, and this is so cheesy, but it's more about like the journey and who you become in the journey than the outcome. And for a lot of people, losing weight, especially if that's something they've struggled with for a long time, is actually a real confidence booster.
I put up like polls on Instagram when I was asking people, if you've lost weight, did it make you feel better? Did it not? I would say about 60% said like were like saying it had positive effects, and then about 40% didn't. And I would say that it did for me, definitely. I would say it was like the catalyst for me actually like improving other aspects, because it gave me like the confidence to be like, I can change stuff about myself. Maybe like my confidence and stuff. I was like, if I can change that, I can change this. So I think it's just a way, as long as you're not desperate for it to change your full entire life or like change everything about you, or like, I think guys are especially bad for, well, in fact, no, girls will definitely do it the same. But I think guys think like getting bigger biceps will get them better at talking to girls or whatever. And then when they realize they got bigger biceps and they still can't talk to girls, that's when they're still fucked.
Yeah, I think it depends like from that poll as well, like how you do it. Because a lot of people will be like, no, this is a part of like the anti-diet argument, right? Is that actually, you know, mental health is important as well. So, and because they think dieting is an inherently a bad thing or a horrible process, and it doesn't have to be. Like, actually, it can be really empowering. And really, if you approach it as like diet and exercise is something I get to do for myself and for my body because I respect it and it makes me feel great, versus most people's connotations of dieting is like miserable, over restrictive, like fixed period of time. I'm going to hate every second of it. I can't have all the foods that I enjoy. I'm not going to be able to go to social occasions. Like there's such a huge negative like bias towards dieting, but actually if it's done right, it should make you feel better, not worse.
Do you read much about the anti-diet movement? I think that was the thing that pissed me off the most when I came into this industry, is like there's so much polar opposites and people really just shouting like the complete opposite thing or the complete opposite thing this way. And there was very little, well, there is people in the middle, but they're the ones that get the most views, having complete opposite opinions. I think I seen comments on your videos as well where people are like, dieting just doesn't work. Does that piss you off at all, or do you just kind of zone out from it?
I don't think it pisses me off. I'd like to know what diet they've tried. You know, like I think a lot of people have had really horrible experiences. And actually, I think with the right support, it would also work for them. But it's not just the right support, it's like the right approach to it as well, the right mindset behind it. Yeah, I think that is all massively underrated, actually, how you're approaching these things, even on like a very practical level. And the research behind this always blows my mind. But if you're coming into dieting like expecting to be hungry, you will be hungry.
And oh really? Well, how are the studies like lined up? I'd probably be bad for that myself. Like as a personal trainer, I feel hungry straight away as soon as I cut my calories. I'll probably feel hungry the day before. I know I'm cutting them.
Yeah, exactly. Because you have this expectation of what dieting is, and then your expectation of food. So one study looked at eggs. So they had, or they gave omelets to everyone, right? And half the group were given, in fact, I'll tell the story differently. Everyone got an omelette and they were given a menu of what is in that omelette just to check that they weren't allergic to anything. Now, half the group got a menu that said it was 2 eggs. Half the group that got a menu said it was 4 eggs. But plot twist is it's the same omelette for everyone. And the group that thought they got 2 eggs were significantly hungrier, both from a subjective perspective and ghrelin levels in your blood, and ate more throughout the rest of the day. The group that thought that they ate 4 eggs were more satiated and ate less the rest of the day. And if you extrapolate those findings out to diet as a whole, and I tell you you're on a diet and you have these connotations of being hungry, of restriction, of like how you think you're going to feel, not only does that come to fruition from like a perception point of view, but also your own physiology changes. So ghrelin is a hunger hormone. So
you can literally alter your ghrelin hormone through your thoughts.
Yeah.
I've never thought of it like that.
There's another really cool study called the milkshake study. And it's a similar, I think it might have even been the same group, but they give everyone a milkshake. The first time that people come in, they get a milkshake that's like really indulgent milkshake. It's like super chocolatey, blah, blah, blah. They have that. They rate their hunger levels. They test their ghrelin levels. And obviously it's reduced quite a lot because it's a super indulgent shake. Next time they come in, they get a slim fast shake. And they do the same test. And again, the same plot twist. Like, it's the same shake.
So the shakes is
the same, but the packaging is different. So your expectation of that food is different. And again, like, the most interesting part of it is it's not just like how you think that you feel. Like, it's not just me like being like, oh, I'm full because I've had 4 eggs or I've had this indulgent shake. Your actual physiology changes as well.
Is there much studies to do with ghrelin and like leptin and stuff, and there been much changes in like genetics? So it being a genetical factor as well?
There is, yeah. Especially there's a certain gene variant of the FTO gene which predisposes you to being overweight. So we know that some people have a higher drive to eat than other people. This seems more to do with ghrelin than leptin on in terms of like short-term hunger fluctuations. But that is another thing that I think a lot of trainers don't fully understand is like, I did a post recently and I knew it was going to be a little bit controversial, but someone had commented on it essentially saying I'd said something about how it's not as impressive for personal trainers to be in shape.
I listened to this podcast.
Yeah. And then someone had commented saying that it's the same for everyone. Like, everyone requires the same determination if they want to get in shape. And it just shows this like insane level of like poor understanding of human physiology and empathy towards people, that it actually is significantly harder for some people to lose weight than others.
Yeah.
And that's why it isn't the same for everyone. And that's why some people do need more support. But if you come in under the impression of like, you're lazy because you have a higher drive to eat, like, it's not someone's fault that they have a higher drive to eat.
I think people will just, if they can find one exception to that, they just will go at you. Like, they're like, oh, I know Susie, she's got 4 kids and she's a PT and she's in shape. Is that not impressive? Whereas if you think about personal trainers, why did they become personal trainers? Because they managed to get themselves in shape, or they were in shape already.
Or they like exercise.
Yeah.
Like, that's massively underrated. Like,
yeah,
I don't need determination to go to the gym because I want to be there. Like, I like going.
Or if you're good at a sport, you're always going to play the sport, aren't you? Like, if you're good at football and like that, I don't care. Football, there's loads of genetics in it. I've met people that just can't kick a ball straight, no matter how many times I've tried. So there's definitely genetic, and I think there is. Because of that, it's like a mix between genetics and environment. If your parents put you into a sport, you're genetically good at it, you play it, you're more likely to be in shape. So I definitely agree with you. But why do people get so offended or not? They get so pressed at stuff. It's because that's what it is, isn't it? It's because it challenges who they are. Yeah,
and I think the other thing is I don't have a big ego about that stuff, as in I don't need to be impressive. Like, I'm your coach, not your, like, I'm not the athlete, you're the athlete, right? I'm there to help you reach your goal. So I don't need to impress anyone. But a lot of personal trainers make their business about them, right? Like, it's train with Emma or web, like, that's not what I'm about. Like, I'm here to help you. But if you do make your business about you, then you kind of do need to be impressive, right? So I think that's why some people were so triggered by it. Like, no, it is impressive that I go to the gym every day.
Yeah.
Like, okay, sorry. Like, and then the other point is, and that's more like a philosophical thing of, it's impressive if it's hard. Like, I don't think things are impressive unless they are somewhat hard. And so if it is genuinely hard for someone to go to the gym, like if you are a busy personal trainer who's got 3 kids, like, yeah, that is impressive that you're still managing to make time to go to the gym. It's not impressive for me because I like going to the gym and I have time to go to the gym and I make time to go to the gym.
I said something the other day that triggered a lot of people, and it was like just like 60 guys with their tops off in their profile picture. And I said, I think with bodybuilding, I don't think there should be as many people that are like Esgfitness, like their name's then fitness, when they're bodybuilders. And my point was more that, like, fitness, when you think about it, a lot of bodybuilders or coaches and stuff are like regular people. I was like, fitness, when you think about it, you don't think like stage lean and stuff like that. And I was like, see, if you can't like just run a 5K without stopping, I think you shouldn't have fitness in your. And I knew it was going to trigger people. And like, if you break me down on that, I've probably got some leeway, but I just went, fuck it, I'll throw it up like that.
Yeah.
And annoyed so many bodybuilders. They're like, oh, this guy can't even bench 140. I was like, definitely can't. You're
Yeah.
right. But they got so triggered. But how do you feel about that?
I think I agree with, like, if what you're getting at is we shouldn't have that as like, this is what fitness is, this is what the like pinnacle of this stuff is, like you should look this way. If anything, it's unhealthy, right? We know that any extreme is unhealthy. Being that level of lean is not healthy, and it's certainly not like the epitome of fitness. But I also don't think we can say what is. Like, I don't think running a 5K, like there's so much specificity in it. Like, also, if you couldn't run a 5K because you're in a wheelchair or something, like there's always exceptions.
Don't throw me under the bus that way.
You know what, you're saying no able-bodied people? Like, oh, that's very
you said amputees can't run a 5K.
Yeah. But I think it's what it means to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think there should be like a sort of hierarchy of this person's better because they do CrossFit, like, or a CrossFit is better than a bodybuilder. Like, it's what you're choosing to do.
Yeah, I think my main point was just that it's because everyone has fitness in their name. It's just that change. Like, when you come into this as well, it's a lot like there's a lot of bodybuilding involved, and I think it's only recently that a lot of personal trainers have been. I think James Smith probably did help that quite a lot. That he's made a lot of like ordinary people have maybe changed their life, like, and they're not bodybuilders, become personal trainers. And I don't know about you, but I think that's probably a good thing.
Oh yeah, I agree. I think especially the extremes of bodybuilding, like nobody needs to diet that hard. Like, unless you actually want to get on stage, you don't need to be
That's
doing
the only ever time you need to do that.
Yeah.
As a coach, do you think that coaching people is more about understanding people than the actual science? So say, for instance, you understand all the studies, but would you say it's more about learning how to get people to apply them?
Yeah. Yes and no. Like, I think you need both. You can't have one without the other, basically. And I think, like, I know some incredible scientists, and like my background is research. They'd be shit coaches because they don't know how to apply that research, right? So you need someone in the middle. And I know people that are far better at me, like, I mean, psychologists, right? But again, it's the application of the information that's important. And a lot of people know what to do, but don't action it. And I think your job as a coach is to take someone from knowing to actioning. And sometimes it's to like educate them first and then take them from knowing to actioning. But on a very basic level, I mean like the most basic level, you could ask a 5-year-old how to lose weight and they'd be like, move more and eat less, right? Like, people know what to do, but it's applying that's the hard part. And like getting over real life barriers in real life application, that's what's hard, because it really doesn't matter what's optimal or what the science says in terms of how many grams of protein you should be having, and do you know all the pathways involved in muscle protein synthesis? Like, no, probably not. But is that useful for a client in a real world situation? Or can you translate what is useful about that for a client into a real world situation? That's a good coach.
Do you spend a lot of time teaching them like the science, or do you really just try to get it across when you're talking all the time? Because you've got a really good way where, like, when you watch your videos, you don't really use too scientific terms. You're obviously talking about studies and stuff, but you don't go too sciencey.
Yeah, I think you'll lose people doing that. I think it's knowing your audience and who you're speaking to. Sometimes I do, like, in a longer format thing, I might talk about something on a podcast, but then I'd always come back to, but this is what's applicable for you. Or like, this is what matters in the real world, and how you can apply that as opposed to just the theory. But I love that stuff. Like,
so you do sit and read studies still quite a lot?
But this is what's cool about my job. So like, I run EIQ nutrition with Amelia. So I can pay myself now to go and geek out on studies. Dream. Okay. But do my clients need to know that level? No. And it can easily overwhelm people. I was definitely, as a younger coach, more like, oh, I'll share all of the knowledge that I have. And people would be like, what am I meant to do with all this stuff? Or like, is it even applicable? Or people would always want to think that it was applicable. And I'm like, oh no, like, I just thought it was interesting. Like, I wouldn't actually do anything about this. So that you've kind of got to consider that as well. But it's nice for me to have that outlet that I can do that. But that would be like for other coaches who are also interested in that, as opposed to directly to a client. Yeah,
I think when I first started, I was definitely heavily into studies. I think everyone does that, and you do that thing where you want to impress other people, don't you? But not like impress other coaches. Look at all this knowledge that I know that you don't know. but then you realise that your clients don't give a fuck at all.
Yeah.
Last question before we wrap up, and I kind of know what you're going to say because I've seen videos of you saying it. What advice would you give to someone who's never really tried anything before, or they've tried the fads and they want to start?
Oh, what do you think I'm going to say?
Nike advert.
Like a what?
Nike advert. You're like, just do it.
Just do it.
Yeah.
I think I would start with, if you've tried dieting before, this is underrated. Learn from your mistakes. Like, go look back and see what you've tried and why it hasn't worked. Because I think so many people just jump into the next thing, hoping that's going to be the thing. Like, or maybe it wasn't that juice cleanse, but it's this juice cleanse with aloe vera that's going to work. Like, no, why aren't these things working for you? When do you tend to give up? What's the situation behind that? Like, what's going on? What's your mindset going into this? Do you actually think this is something I'm going to stick to forever? Or do you already have an end point in sight? Are you already like, yeah, but after these 7 days? Like, think about all these things before you start your next diet.
Fair. I think that's probably what I've done as well. I think YouTube helped me a lot. Just watching, I think you do learn a lot if you just consume loads, like, and see whilst you're dieting, see if you just consume information whilst you're doing it. I think it was like Jordan's diet and stuff, and when I really first started understanding it, I just like engrossed myself in like just even like a podcast or two a week. And like, even because they would always just say things like, just give up, just don't give up. And I genuinely think, see, having that in your ear, like, see, when you, because it's the closest thing you can get to having a coach. It's just like someone saying what they'd be telling their clients. And when it's constantly in your ear, I think it does.
Do
really
you
help.
think that's learning though, or just because I think probably 90% of my job as a coach is reassurance, which is why, like, on the EC method, we put out so many podcasts, because it's exactly that. A lot of the stuff is the same, but it's reassuring people again.
Calming people down.
The scales haven't dropped like in 2 days. That's okay. Like, we expect that. Or they've bumped up a little bit. Yeah, that's normal. Like, fluctuations are inevitable. It's not that people don't know that a lot of the time. It's that they just need to hear it again for the 100th time, because the reassurance is what stops people giving up.
The first time I went through like increased calories, so like bulking for the first time, so I really struggled with that just because I came from being overweight. See, putting on weight, see, if it was weird. I could deal with it going down the weight, and I could deal with it like fluctuating up when I was trying to lose weight. But see, when I was bulking, see, if I seen my weight go up like 2 kilos or whatever, I'd just be like, I'd be like, I'm so fat, do you know what I mean? But I had a coach through that, and see him just like going, you look fine.
Yeah.
Like, or I even see a picture, he's like, you're fine. Or I would send him like one picture, and he's like, you're sound. And I was absolutely fine after that. And that's as a coach. Something you talk about as well, into having a coach.
Yeah,
as a coach.
So useful. Like, hairdressers have hairdressers, right? Like, it's just having an external like perspective. It's very hard to have perspective over your own life. Same with business. Like, having perspective to see like from a like bird's eye view of what's going on. Like, it's so more clear for someone else than it is for you a lot of the time, because you're in it.
I think when we all say that you should get a coach, like client blur, like people will think you're just trying to sell. Like, you're just like, oh, you're just trying to sell. But I do think it's one of the most important things that you should ever do, especially if you've always failed at losing fat. I think you should get a coach. On that note, do you want to plug all your coaching? I genuinely think like loads of people, because you were the most requested person behind James Smith, obviously.
You want to hear from me at all, probably the best place to contact me is, I feel like, where am I looking? But at Esgfitness on Instagram. I reply to all DMs, so just shoot me a message if you want to talk. And if you are a coach and you want to build your business, then that's at AF Mentors.
Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's been a pleasure.